Hey guys, it's Nemo and welcome to World of Warships. I thought that while I had some spare time in the middle of the really busy schedule I've had lately, I would do a commentary. And today's video is the Gadjah Mada Tier 7 Pan-Asian destroyer. And it is absolutely a brilliant ship. Now I thought I'd do a destroyer commentary because a lot of people have been struggling in the current meta to play destroyers. There's a lot of destroyers, Shimas, Gearings, whatever, who have been sitting on the J line in a lot of games. You know, an aircraft carrier comes up and they just run away. And so what I wanted to do was do a commentary about playing destroyers and playing in the current meta. Now, I'm the only destroyer in this game, as you can see, and there are 2 enemy aircraft carriers. Now, the Gadjah Mada is Tier 7, as I said, and Tier 7 gets really good matchmaking. I actually really enjoy Tier 7 matchmaking so much that I've played most of my games in Tier 7. You do see Tier 9s every now and then, but not as much as Tier 8s see Tier 10s or Tier 5s see Tier 7s and things like that. So it's good matchmaking, it's quite comfortable matchmaking, and it's not really bad. It's competitive matchmaking as well. I mean, like, Tier 7 can be quite competitive. Now, the Gadjah Mada has 120mm guns with the best firing angles in the game. You can go bow in on enemy destroyers or whatever you want to take on, cruisers, battleships, and at a very small angle be able to fire all 6 guns, because the rear turret is a 360-degree rotational turret, and every now and then, as I said, you can go bow in. You don't need to give broadside to fight these other destroyers. While they're turning broad to try and get all their guns off, you can just shoot them and just pop smoke if you have to, and reversing your smoke. Really, really good ship. The Gadjah Mada, I would say, is probably the second best ship of its line. Changmu's obviously the best now because the Yu Yang had a big nerf, and again it's because of the matchmaking. The only 2 weaknesses I would say of the Gadjah Mada is 6.1 kilometer detection. At your tier that's okay, but when you face Tier 9s and Tier 8s it's quite difficult to work with. And deep water torpedoes. Now they're only 8 kilometers, but they pack an absolute punch. Now, what you can see me doing here is, I know that there's a destroyer in the cap, right, and this guy has been seen. So I'm not going to go straight in there. A lot of destroyer players haven't really adjusted to the meta where you get aircraft carriers spotting you all the time. Now, fortunately, I haven't been spotted by aircraft carriers, but I have been spotted by everything else because I'm firing here. You don't need to rush the cap. Yes, your job is capping, and your job is contesting the caps and driving out enemy destroyers and spotting. Now this is what a lot of people are having trouble with playing destroyers lately, is that they can't do their job because of the aircraft carrier. Don't worry about the aircraft carrier. You've got smoke, you've got things like that. Stick close to cruisers. As you can see, I've got a cruiser here. He asked me to smoke him up. Now, as a cruiser player, you've got to sort of think of the old smoke meta, where the destroyer will pop a smoke for you and spot while you come in and help him out. Yes, they're torpedo magnets, but if you're doing your job as a destroyer, you'll spot those torpedoes for your cruisers first anyway. Now, I've gone into the cap a little bit because I wanted to see if he was still there, the enemy, and my RPF saying, yeah, he's nearby. I wanted to see if I could scare him out. Trying to get some torps on the Charles Martel here. I'm not in too much of a hurry to cap. As you can see, the other flank is the same, that they're backed off a little bit. There is only 1 enemy destroyer in the game, and we know where he is. And because we know he's over our side, I'm quite comfortable in the knowledge that the decap is not going to be contested right now. They're not going to try and rush in there against all my ships without a destroyer to cap. So I see the enemy destroyer and I know that he needs to go. Once he goes, I can do my job more effectively. I can get in, I can cap. The only thing I'll have to worry about is radar, but I know that there's an Atlanta out here who has short range radar. He's only got 8.5 kilometers. And the caps in Two Brothers, is the Two Brothers map, are quite large. So map knowledge and ship knowledge is really, really handy when you're playing destroyers. In fact, map knowledge and ship knowledge is probably the one thing a destroyer captain really needs. A lot of players come into the game, they think, oh, this is great, I can sail around ships and shoot stuff. But there are so many intricacies in this game that mean you have to play. To be effective in your role, you have to know all those sorts of things. You know, my detection range, their detection range, that radar range, that hydro range, these plane spotting ranges, my torpedo range. There's so much that comes into it. So a lot of my tutorials lately have been quite basic and have focused mainly on positioning. So as you can see here, that the gun angles are so good. I don't have to give too much broadside. I'm turning out now because I'm close to a cruiser. Okay, so he goes down, and now that he's down, I can do my job a lot better now that the enemy destroyer is down. So my position is just hanging around the bottom of this cap here. I'm spotting for my team, I'm stopping the enemy destroyer from getting the capture points, and every time I go in there, every time you go into the cap as a destroyer and there's an enemy destroyer in there, you make them nervous. And once players get nervous, they start making mistakes. They put themselves into the wrong position. They put themselves in areas where they can get deleted quite easily. So you just hanging around the base of the cap, spotting, torpedoing, and every now and then going in and stopping the capture points means that the enemy is, one, not getting points, and two, you're playing mind games with an enemy destroyer. Now, the Super Unicum players and the Unicum players probably aren't going to be affected as much by your mind games, but when you consider that the average World of Warships player has a 48% win rate, your mind games are going to mess around with more than half of the player base. So one of these enemy cruisers here has their RPF, or radio location as it is now, and knows I'm around. It could also be the battleship, but I'm assuming more it's cruiser. I think if you have RPF on a battleship, it's a bit of a waste of points. So I want to try and get in and hit the North Carolina. He's got big 16-inch guns. He can hurt my team quite a bit, especially my cruisers. You know, I have a Megami there. Megamis are notoriously soft, really soft ship. And they sniff a shell, and they've got 3 citadels on them. So the cap's almost mine. We've played patiently the whole game. The other side of the map has been able to do the same thing. Just play patient, and now we've capped. Now we've got 3 caps to their 1. But there is an enemy Atlanta that's gone down the middle. Now the Atlanta is probably the only ship that I'm going to be a little bit worried about at the moment, because of, one, his position behind me as a destroyer can be nerve-wracking, and two, he has those rapid fire guns. With BFT he has a 4.5 second reload, I think it is. So 4 or 4.5 seconds, quite fast. So I start opening fire. I want to finish off the North Carolina. Unfortunately the torpedoes didn't do it. My Fuso does that, and that's a vital kill, because those 16-inch guns on the North Carolina can really hurt my cruisers and even my battleships. 16-inch guns can overmatch most armor, so that's a vital kill there. Now I'm just here spotting now. A lot of my job is done, and any indecision that's going to come now will come because of the Atlanta behind me and the fact that there are no ships down there to counter. There's nothing more annoying than having ships in behind the line. Now if you consider the line as your capture points, or you consider the line as my northern group compared to my southern group where they are, and you draw a straight line between them, you don't want enemy ships in behind there. You want to be able to see everything in front of you and get yourself in positions to crossfire. So now that we have an enemy behind us, it's going to split our team into different factions and different ways, instead of having the left wing, right wing to look after each of the areas. So I'm not going to panic right now. I know he's there, I know he's spotted, I know I'm not spotted. So I'm just going to dump my torpedoes off. As I said, these deep water torpedoes might only have short range of 8 kilometers, but they are very effective. They hit hard, and they cannot be seen for quite a while. So I get some torpedoes off. I decide to go and deal with the Atlanta. I see he's on very low health, so I start gunning towards him. And again, you can see these really good firing angles on the Gadjah Mada. You don't have to give too much of a broadside for the ship, and we get the not there we do get the kill. And I was wondering why he didn't fire at the destroyer. Usually you'd turn and you'd fire on a destroyer, but he decided that the Nelson was a better target for his low health. I mean, it would have been more effective for his team if he had have killed off the eyes of the enemy team, which is the destroyer. So just there's a lot of other things to keep an eye out in games, such as target selection. If you just see a destroyer there, kill him, because destroyer captains change games. A lot of people think that the aircraft carrier is the most powerful thing in World of Warships. The aircraft carrier is the most annoying thing in World of Warships, but a good destroyer is a game changer because of capping, spotting, torpedoes, all those sorts of things, cap contesting, and the destroyer's role. You have the largest role in World of Warships, and if you're unable to perform your role, your team is at a significant disadvantage. So one thing I will say, and I'm not trying to discourage people from playing destroyers, but if you are uncomfortable playing destroyers in the current meta with lots of aircraft, now I was lucky I wasn't really targeted much by aircraft in this game. If you are uncomfortable playing destroyers in the current meta, don't play them, guys. Choose a different class. And the only reason I say that is because of your role. You need to be performing your role no matter what ships are out there. And if you can't, you're just going to let yourself down and let teams down. So here's the post-battle results. We did a 49,600 points of damage. We got the kill on the Atlanta. Yeah, he was low health, but we got defenders here. We got the cap, and that's your job. That's what we did. 1,700 points of base XP is nothing to sniff at. Finishing second on the team, even though it didn't look like we contested really hard. We just played delay and did our job. So how do we build the Gadjah Mada? Well, we're going to go with obviously premium consumables for everything. I'm not even sure I had premium smokes in that game, but anyway, premium consumables for everything. Upgrades wise, we're going to go with the main armaments mod 1 to protect our guns and our torpedo tubes. They can be quite fragile, especially against high explosive. Modification, a propulsion modification 1 to prevent damage to our engine. Destroyer engines get knocked out notoriously. Aiming systems 1 for a little bit more accuracy. It's you don't really need to. The AA guns mod 1 is viable if you are worried about playing against the aircraft carriers. And propulsion modification 2 for that little bit of takeoff speed, because you use your smokes a lot when there are a lot of aircraft carriers targeting you. The Gadjah Mada also has those really great smokes, long duration bloom with the obviously shorter duration of action time. So captains wise, we're going to go with priority targets, so you know who's firing, how many people are aiming at you, how many are firing at you. Last stand is mandatory on all destroyers. I'm going to make a video one day on that, why. Basic firing training to help those little 120mm guns fire a little bit faster, and then concealment expert. That is the first 10 points that I would be running. Now on this I have RPF, or radio location. so it gives me that more information on where my enemy destroyers are going to be. My next points I'd probably run survivability expert, and then there's a lot of other points in here that are quite viable. You know, there's the superintendent, which would be good if you like running AR. Run AR. Preventative maintenance would also be a top skill to have. IFHE, I wouldn't worry about IFHE on the Gadjah Mada because your 120mm guns can penetrate 19mm of armor already. You need 19mm of armor penetration to be able to contest against the high tier destroyers, tier 8s and 9s, which you will fight. And if you took IFHE, I wouldn't recommend it because it's 4 points that would be lost. It's unnecessary, I think. Anyway, the Gadjah Mada is an absolutely great ship. If you do find yourself up the Pan-Asian line, you will enjoy this ship. She's very, very good. In the current meta, don't be worried about playing against CVs because you don't always play against them. And so enjoy the games that you don't get against them and challenge yourself in the ones that you do. Anyway guys, that's my Gadjah Mada commentary. As I said, absolutely brilliant ship. Hope you get something out of it. Thanks for joining me. And stay safe out there.